Welcome to Papercrafter's Library. In this video, I'm going to show you how to create this Walk in the Rain art journal page. This features the trickling water stamp by one of the Papercrafter's Library featured companies, Designs by Rin. So for my art journal page today, I'm going to be working on one of these craft sheets that I pulled out of my Words to Live By journal. You can see here what these pages look like. So I took one out and then I cut it down to 8.5 inches high by 6 3/8 of an inch wide. And this is what I'm going to be building my art journal page on. And then afterwards, when I'm done, I'm going to stick it inside my Words to Live By journal. So I'm starting by applying a coat of gesso to my page. This is the Claudine Helmuth Studio Gesso, and I'm just using my 1-inch Simply Simmons flat brush. And my brush is a little bit damp. I had dipped it into my tub of water and then blotted it using my paper towel. So I'm just going to very quickly apply a coat of this to my page. And then I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to dry it. So once I'm done that, I will be back. So I'm now working on some grid paper that I've been doing some other painting projects on. Because as you can see, after I dried my gesso, my paper gets quite curly. So what I want to do is just to place some Dotto adhesive at the back of this. And Dotto adhesive is a temporary removable adhesive. And I'm just placing this paper onto my grid paper here, just so that it kind of stays in place as I'm stamping. Now I'm going to add some background to this using this Unity Stamps She Script stamp. This is a Christy Tomlin stamp, and I'm going to be stamping it on there using my Ranger Jet Black Archival ink, which is a permanent waterproof ink. This is my black ink of choice when I'm art journaling. And then I'm not mounting this on any kind of a block. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to loosely kind of hold it and just press down in a few areas, as you can see, because I don't want solid coverage. I just want it to look very kind of rough and patchy. There you can see what that looks like. I think I'll put a little bit up here. So you can see what that looks like. So now I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm just going to heat that until the ink is thoroughly dry. So now what I'm going to do with my ink dry is I'm going to create a simple painted background. And I have here on my little plastic palette 5 colors of paint along with some gesso. So I have here, my lightest blue is this Martha Stewart Crafts, and this is Pool. I have my golden cobalt teal, my golden turquoise phthalo, Craft Smart light green, and then Craft Smart citron. And all I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my fingers, I'm going to dip it in the paint, and I'm going to just kind of start smooshing it in different areas, not really thinking or worrying too much about where the color is going. Kind of trying to do this without thinking. Now you'll notice I didn't put too much paint in here, and that's because I don't like to have a lot of paint left over, so I'd really rather just add more as I need it rather than putting too much. Now as you saw, I didn't really clean my fingers in between the blues. And I'm trying not to blend the colors too much. I want to see the distinct colors. see, just by applying your paint by hand, you can get a really neat background. And the only tool I used was my finger, and I have my palette. I chose a few different complementary colors of paint, and we've got a really nice background. Now if you want to layer more paint, at this point you kind of have to be careful, because if I were to continue blending this, my colors are going to start blending one into the other, and I don't want to do that. So if you want to bring out another color, let's say I wanted the teal to show up more, then at this point I would take my heat tool and dry this. So I'm going to do that, and then I'll be back and decide if I want to layer on any more color. So my paint's now dry, so I'm going to come back in with a little bit of my cobalt, but before I do that, I'm just going to mist my page lightly, just to help me pull my cobalt a little bit better. So there you can see what that looks like, and I think I'm going to leave it like that, and I'm now just going to make sure it's thoroughly dry with my heat tool before we move on. So here you can see what my page looks like, and you can still see some of that script peeking out behind the paint, which I really like. Now if you want that to come out more, you can always take your stamp and stamp it on top of the paint, but I'm just going to leave it for now. I may add a little bit more later. In the meantime, or next, what I want to do is I want to take this really cool trickling water stamp. This is a stamp that's made by Designs by Rin, and I'm going to stamp it along the top of this page. Now because I'm filming with my camera kind of over top of my work area, I'm going to stamp this upside down, because normally I would sort of stand and look down above my page, but obviously I can't do that if my camera's there. So I'm just going to re-put this on my page, and you can see the stamp is kind of staggered. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stamp it along my page like so, and I'm going to use that Ranger Jet Black Archival ink. So I'm going to make sure my stamp is well inked, and then I'm going to stamp it. I may have stamped that a little bit crooked. Let's try that again. I'm going to continue on down this way. Actually, before I do that, I'm just going to put a little bit more Dotto adhesive here, just to keep that edge of my paper down. Let's add a little bit more ink to my stamp. And this hopefully won't be crooked this time. So let's turn this around. So there you can see what that looks like. And now I'm going to take my heat tool to that, and I'm going to make sure it's completely dry. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this stamp here. This is a Donna Downey stamp. This is called, what is this called? Oh, Insightful Meadow. And I've got it mounted to an acrylic block, and I'm going to stamp it along the bottom of my page using Jet Black Archival ink. So I want it to be higher over here, and then I'm going to stamp it again without stamping it off. And then again here. So each time you see, I get it a little bit lighter. So it almost kind of starts to look like it's fading into the backdrop. And then I'm going to stamp this one lower down, and then that one So I'm just kind of filling in down here a little bit so that it just kind of looks like they're fading off into the distance. So now I'm just going to give that a shot of heat with my heat tool to dry it. My next step now is to take this Sharpie extra fine poster paint pen. I want to shake it really, really well, and then I'm going to use it to add some highlights to my raindrops. So if you look here at the top of the raindrop, there's this little dot, and I'm just going to put a little bit there, a little bit kind of to the side here. And then I'm going to dry that with a heat tool. Now what I want to do is I want to add my quote. And my quote is, "Some people walk in the rain, others just get wet." And I'm going to be doing this by hand. So what I'm going to do is, I'm not going to have the camera running in real time as I do this. I'm going to speed up the camera so that you can just watch as I'm doing the lettering. For my first line, I'm going to draw a very faint pencil line. Let's see if I can see that. So I can see that enough. And that's just to help me make sure that it starts off straight, because there's nothing worse than adding your sentiment and then discovering, or your quote or whatever it is you're doing, and then discovering that the whole thing's crooked, especially if you can't erase it. And I'm going to be using my Sharpie water-based paint pen. This is the white extra fine tip. So make sure when you use this pen, you always give it a really, really good shake. So with my lettering now finished, I want to add a few little white specks. So I'm just going to shake up my pen and I'm going to flick it downwards. And you can see I'm just getting a few, or a little bit of white paint splattering on my page. Not too much, because I don't want it to be too overwhelming, but just enough to bring some of that white into the rest of the page. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my heat tool and I'm going to dry that. My next step now is to stick this into my journal, and for that I'm going to use some of my multi-medium. So I'm going to stick it on the back side of this page here, and I'm just going to do that by placing a liberal layer of my multi-medium onto my journal page and then sticking this on. So once that's done, I'll be back to show you what it looks like. So my page is now stuck to the inside of my book, and the last thing I want to do is add a few little rhinestones. I'm going to add them here kind of to the center stem of the flower, and I'm going to alternate between the large and the medium size rhinestones. Now after I put my page in my book, I did apply a coat of my multi-medium over top of it as well. So that's still a little bit damp, and that's going to help hold the rhinestones that I'm placing on here as well. So here you can see and you don't have to add the rhinestones. I just like adding a little bit of dimension to my pages with some three-dimensional accents or embellishments. So there you can see what that looks like, and our art journal page is now finished.